graffiti as an art is beautiful, but writing on, you know, public spaces that you don't own is illegal. That struggle is actually what makes the game better, I think.
It's a very indie kind of vibe, like the independent, almost independent film vibe, the way that it's been produced. I've been an outsider in everything I've done. I've had the good fortune of having, having some success in my core business and in fashion. I've had some pretty good success, respectable success in publishing. But, you know, coming in as an outsider into the gaming world is definitely, you're faced with a lot of cynics. You know, when people ask, what are you proud of about this game? It's really just the fact that I was able to get it made. In its early inception, I was conceiving it potentially an animated something. And it was at a moment in my business when I was over $7 million in debt. I remember on the Friday being in my office and excusing all of my staff to leave at around 3 p.m. because the lights went out in the building, and it was because the cable truck hit the cables or whatever, which was a lie. We didn't pay for electric bills. So I had to turn my business around. I put this script and this stack of papers about Yohai of characters and environments, just put it on ice. When I started pitching this thing, it was at a time when games that had this kind of a narrative thread or had a urban label on them really hadn't existed.
Literally for a year before I got involved, it was just this sort of mysterious project. It was called Project Rhapsody at the time. Contrary to popular opinion, it wasn't like from my personal experiences or anything. It was a lot more from my fantasy of what the experiences would be like.
My background is in comics, and the idea of making a Gotham, or what I felt could be, you know, the new take on Gotham City, was very exciting to me. He really had a strong vision for what he felt New Radius was all about. Once he sold me that vision, I was 100% on board.
As soon as I heard it has to deal with graffiti, I was like, I got to get on that.
It was really that willingness to sort of step into the dark with us and try something different.
We're gonna take the risk of building this product with the potential upside of it building a fan base and, you know, potentially working. And we're gonna do it in a way where it's gonna be painful.
I hope Getting Up just encourages more developers to open their minds to a new way of developing video games.
If you said to the average development team, the average video game company, go make a Star Trek game, go make a Dungeons and Dragons game, 9 out of 10 developers will know how to do that. The guys that are building games are just culturally into those intellectual properties.
It's not like, okay, we're gonna take this formula and we're gonna execute this game. It's like, okay, we're gonna take this idea or this culture, and we're gonna try to find a game for this culture, which is a totally different way to work.
It was good. I mean, again, it was just this whole new world that we hadn't been exposed to.
Marc was always challenging us to throw away our video game ideas and cultures, things that we'd always relied upon.
Developers know memory constraints. We know, how long it's going to take to do something. So, when he came in, it's like, yeah, we want freeform. We want to put up stickers and posters and stencils and markers. We're like, dang, that's a lot of stuff.
Finding that tension between like great gameplay and something that's culturally respectful is, that's a balancing act.
It started off as a much more fantastic sort of stylized story, stylized characters.
A lot of what I had to deal with was arm wrestling, stereotypes, and kind of arm wrestling and being overly cartoonish.
We started off with a cel-shaded look, and we were trying to play with some kind of stylistic kind of feel, and it was kind of cool just to experiment with that, but I guess we were way off base in that regard. It was much more
of a science fiction kind of a route. In fact, Train at one time had wings, sort of a little known fact.
Real funky walks and exaggerated posing.
Wide leg pants or something, and like overly big feet, overly hulking body proportions or something. In fact, I wanted to make him kind of scrawny.
oh yeah, it's gonna have a heavy hip hop influence. There's gonna be a lot of music involved. And somehow we got on this tangent of, you know, a music game. It's sort of a, not necessarily DDR, but there might be rhythms involved in putting graffiti up on the wall and hitting buttons and so forth.
So it was almost like a dancing game. And one time Train spun in the air and did a 360 and like fire followed his feet.
Bending the character backwards, doing 360 flips. I mean, it was much more acrobatic.
I remember this one idea we had where he had a spray can, you would jump off a building and you would use it, you know, to kind of slow down your fall. And that was a little, you know, kind of out there.
You know, I didn't want to be on some like 80s b-boy, like purely throwback. I wanted to feel contemporary. So like when they proposed, you know, an opening cinematic at a DJ battle with breakdancers, I kind of...
It wasn't really what Marc was going for.
You didn't need to have like Train in the club breaking and then running outside and painting.
I remember that first interview, first phone conference with Marc, and he's like, well, guys, I don't think you're quite getting it here. You know, it's more about the culture and the graffiti and what it means to be a graffiti artist and live in an urban city. And we came up with something that was a little more fluid, that felt more real.
We've gone through a lot of iterations just to get the graffiti feeling good. We had some weird thing where the arm would move all funny. We did something crazy like that, but it didn't work. And now you can actually just spray paint and it feels smooth and it feels natural.
You see the mist come out and there's an underspray element to it. And then eventually you fill the piece in and then you get the flourish when it's all done.
We have this kind of urban, gritty world and people can relate to that more rather than kind of this cartoony facade.
There's this whole element of exposing, really fast-tracking the history of graffiti. So you learn how graffiti starts. You get to meet these legends, these real graffiti artists in the game.
Graffiti art was a huge part of the culture of hip-hop and the culture of New York City. Marc, as an artist and as a businessman, has done a good job of making sure that it stays true to the culture. And there are actual graffiti legends like Coke 2 and Futura who are in the game.
What Marc has done is by signing up 50 graffiti artists plus the 6 legends, is he sort of instantly brought a certain authenticity to the game.
Different people played different capacities. Some people just lent their art. Some people lent their voiceovers.
You know, these are guys that Marc knows and that he brings to the game and that we meet in the game. Guys like Scene, guys like Shepard Fairey, you know, who sort of rewrote the art of propaganda. Guys like T-Kid who, you know, teach our character Train how to do wild style.
Damn, T-Kid, this is all you?
What up, son?
I mean, their likenesses, they lend their voices, and so it lends an authenticity to this project that's unparalleled.
Marc came down to the idea of getting this artist named Sub to do all of Train's graffiti.
I went through Sub on the advice of my lead artist, Mike Evans.
I'm pretty much doing everything from when he's a toy all the way to when he's a legend. So generally all of Train.
You know, he understood automatically his own understanding and knowledge of, you know, the come up from toy to, like, you know, aspiring to be a legend.
Actors have to get into a character. As corny as that kind of sounds, like in the graffiti world, you kind of have to do that because you kind of have to backtrack back to the idea of him being a toy.
He knew to think that way. He was asking those questions. He knew that the art acted as a character. When you're in Newport Beach, California, where they are, and these guys never came to New York their whole lives. I made sure they get on the underground. I took them on helicopter ride around the city.
Yeah, we're not going to the Statue of Liberty and the Brooklyn Bridge. I mean, if we're seeing the bridge, we're seeing the underside of the bridge.
To the normal tourist or anybody that lives in New York probably has never gone down there, and you probably shouldn't. And we would actually have to go on the wall so the trains would pass us.
Doing a tag on the wall in Times Square 100 feet from a cop, you get the rush and the thrill, and you start to understand, yeah, there's a game here.
Not only the underbelly, but we also looked at the rooftops, which is another, you know, area of the city that, you know, a lot of people don't think about. There's a whole nother layer to the city that exists on the rooftops, a whole nother topology.
Looking at all the structures and kind of all the verticality, you know, as a level designer, I would look at that and say, you know what, we could probably build levels that go as high.
We started clicking into the culture. It gave me my first sort of experience of what I thought this game could be.
The style of Train came from a combination of a lot of things, basketball footage, NBA players.
Like, we started off with this idea for a fighting style inspired by basketball called Dunk Fu.
Dunk Fu being that he fought like a basketball player would play basketball. So there were moves where you'd grab somebody and pick them up and throw them down on the ground like you were slamming a ball into a rim.
Train is all basketball with a little bit of hot sauce on the side. We wanted to keep him a people's man. The main bad guys in our game have guns, and we didn't want to portray him that he's a lethal weapon style dude. So most of his weapons are blunt to keep down the brutality of the entire thing.
He does amazing things, but they're all things you can imagine doing yourself. You can imagine climbing a pipe. You can imagine shimmying on a ledge. You can imagine rappelling off of a rope. Things that in our world, seem pretty fantastical. Real graffiti artists are actually doing this.
Yeah! My bad, dog. Woo! Hey, you're trying to kill me.
I used to always talk to TALIB KWELI, at different events, if I'd see him out or if I'd see him at Ecko events or whatever. You just listen to his talking voice. I find it to be a really cool, distinctive voice that you could really build something around.
Vandal Squad, a graph writer's worst enemy. Tell me they ain't go over my shit. I'm a real New York City kid. I've had a real New York-centric experience. And, I don't know what Marc saw in me, but I know that there's aspects of this character that relate to how I grew up. Train's take on authority. Oh, damn, here comes the heat.
Vandal Squad! Shit! Surprise, surprise!
Ain't y'all got some donuts to chase down or something? I think it works for the character.
And I think it was interesting for him because I don't think he realized how much of acting was going to be involved.
Subway Underground. It's a writer's natural home. Dark, dangerous. My first experience with Ecko was buying his t-shirts with his graffiti on them. It sort of paid homage to the culture back then. So I had a feeling that they would get it right this time too. See ya!
The main purpose of bringing RJD2 into this project was just because his sound was perfect for it. It's hip hop, but he allows himself to stretch and try new things. And there's something very musical about it. He broke the traditional conventions of every 4 bars being the same thing looped over and over and over again.
Doing this project has me analyzing music in video games differently. You can't just write 6-minute pieces of music for every section of the game.
If the music's too symmetrical and too much where you could just go like this, 10 hours of this is, it's dope when you're just listening to a headphone. But when you're trying to make it an emotional, situational score, it doesn't work.
You recognize it, your brain recognizes it as a loop, and that's not a good thing in the gameplay. What you really want is something that loops, that's seamless.
Revive, rebuild, not so new anymore, as it appears that once again graffiti writers have beat the system.
From the voice talent to the music talent, we're able to really tap into some of the popular icons in entertainment right now. Brittany Murphy, who's going to play Karen Light, and Rosario Dawson, who's playing Tina.
And now Aunt Beth will be immortalized by the lovely Andy Dick. Fashion culture is very elite. Okay, some of the most elitist pricks I've ever met have been wearing like $5,000 Helmut Lang suits. But there's, I learned fast that gaming nerds, like hardcore game nerds, they have an opinion and they are hell-bent in letting you know and communicating. And I respect that about gaming community. That's a part of the challenge I signed up for when I wanted to get involved in this. I knew I had thick enough skin to deal with it. You can never control the haters. There's always gonna be haters or cynics. But I would just say to the haters that I'm making it, bitch.